Draft week is officially here, and we got a lot of NFL draft rumors to get into. My name is Harrison Graham. Welcome into Four Verts. ESPN's Adam Schefter dropped a bunch of information earlier today. Going to give my reaction and thoughts on some of those stories. Okay, let's start with Shedeur Sanders, who I think has become the biggest just unknown headline grabber. Like, what's going to happen with this guy? Is he going to go 3 to the Giants? Is he going to go later to the Giants? Well, the Giants are reportedly split on Shedeur Sanders, and what that means is some people within the organization really like him, and some probably do not. And obviously, Joe Schoen being the GM, he's probably the person, along with head coach Brian Dable, who matters the most outside of the owner, John Mara. So let's talk about his prospects of ending up in New York. And I thought this really stood out. Adam Schefter said that the Giants have done more work on Shedeur than any team has done with any other prospect in this draft. They added that additional private workout this past week. They had someone at almost every single one of his games this year. Like, they have spent hours and hours and hours with this guy. And to me, when you get to a certain point, it's almost like if you spent this much time and you still don't know, then you know type thing. At least that, hey, we've spent a ton of investment into this guy and we're still split as an organization. To me, taking that player at 3 is a little bit risky, which is why I don't think they will, but they could take him later. Here's what Schefter had to say on this subject. He said, no team has done more work on a player than the Giants have done on Sanders. As another NFL GM said about the Giants GM, Joe Schoen has lived in Boulder, and yet there still might not be consensus within the building about whether to draft him. There is a belief around the league that certain segments of the Giants organization want Sanders more than others. And you do wonder as they go through this, I for one, I'll just say this straight up, I don't expect the Giants to take him at 3. If you're still trying to figure it out, you're not sold enough. Like, you got to be sold on the quarterback. You can't just be like, let's just take the chance. Because with Sanders, and we've talked about this, he's not like the take a swing guy in the top 5 if you're not sure. If you're taking him that high, it's because you believe in his floor and that he can be a good enough starter, because he's not one of these projections. Like, he doesn't have the rocket launcher arm. He doesn't have the incredible physical traits. Like, he's a solid-ish athlete with an okay arm and average size. But if you think his accuracy is supreme enough, if you think his mind is good enough, okay, that's why you would take him. If you're not sold on those things, it's not like Anthony Richardson a couple years ago where you're like, he is raw as hell, but he's 6'5", 250, runs a 4.4, and has a rocket arm. We think we could turn him into the next Josh Allen. Like, that is not the case here. So, again, I don't expect him to take him at 3. The one wild card, though, is how desperate is the owner, John Mara? Because we all saw on Hard Knocks last year, what did he say about Saquon Barkley? He is our most popular player by far. And what does he mean when he's saying that? Jersey sales, season ticket holders, all that stuff, the business side of the organization. John Mara is probably thinking about telling Joe Schoen, hey, do more work on this guy, because if you really like him, we should take him, because we're going to sell 1 million jerseys and it's going to give the franchise hope. But again, you can't run a football team that way. If you don't think that Shedeur Sanders can be a high level quarterback, you can't take that player in the top 5. You want to come back in the first round, they're in the second round, take him there. Hey, that's a more calculated swing. But if a guy like Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter is on the board and you're not sold on the quarterback you're considering, to me, that's a non-starter. You can't even go that route. Now, Schefter, in his article, mentioned 2 other teams when it comes to Shedeur. The Saints at 9, but it sounds like they've kind of cooled on him, that they may actually like Jaxson Dartmoor. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. So if you're playing the calculus, and this was reported last week, that Shedeur's range is 3 to 21. Giants at 3, Steelers at 21. If we are to believe that the Steelers like him enough that if he was available at 21, they would take him, well, my guess is that he will go somewhere probably in the teens, maybe early 20s, but if 21's the ceiling, maybe, or the floor, I should say, then the Broncos at 20 would probably be the spot you'd have to get to. Is you're a team that's not currently in that range will trade down to a team outside of that range. So who could that be? The Browns at 33, right? If they take Travis Hunter, maybe they come back up to like 16 and take Shedeur Sanders to pair with his college teammate. Maybe the Giants take Abdul Carter at 3 and then come back to the top 20 to take Shedeur Sanders, because none of those teams picking in the teens, I mean, I guess a team like Seattle at 18 could consider it, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think you'll see a team trade down, maybe a team like Atlanta at 15, who doesn't have a lot of draft capital, to one of these desperate teams that doesn't want to take him 2 or 3 like the Browns and Giants, but maybe they're willing to come back into the mid-late teens to take him there. But if you're that split as an organization, like, to me, if they take Shedeur at 3, that's major red flags, because there's been too much reporting suggesting that the Giants building as a whole is not on the same page and completely set in stone on taking the guy. So we'll see what happens. My gut still tells me it'll be the Giants, but I don't think it'll be the Giants at number 3. Okay, subscribe to the channel. Draft coverage all week long. We'll have my final mock draft later this week as well, probably on Wednesday, so be on the lookout for that. I put out a mock yesterday with 7 blockbuster trades, so if you want to go check that out, hit the subscribe button, go to the content tab, and don't forget to turn on notifications once you subscribe. That way, every time we publish a video, when you open your phone, you are going to get hit with a notification. So we appreciate you guys for tuning in and supporting the show, and if you haven't subbed, be sure to do so. Okay, let's talk a little Bears and Ashton Jeanty. You guys know I host our Bears Now channel here at Chat Sports as well, so dove deeper into this for any Bears fans out there over there, so go check that out. But kind of just a brief hit on it here when it comes to the Bears and the Boise State running back. Schefter reporting this, quote, "There are multiple personnel people who believe the Bears are praying that Jeanty slips to them at number 10. They think new Bears head coach Ben Johnson could feature Jeanty and DeAndre Swift as a two-headed duo the way the Lions did with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs." Now, I do wonder if the Bears like Jeanty enough to trade up, because I think it's pretty obvious they really like him. And why wouldn't they? They need another running back. I think we saw last year. DeAndre Swift can be a productive player. He's not a 3-down player. He's not good enough between the tackles, doesn't have good enough vision, not good enough in pass pro. Like, you need someone to pair with him, and that guy is not Roschon Johnson. So they need another running back. The question is, do they like Jeanty enough to send more future capital, either in this draft or in a future draft, to move up in this NFL draft to go get him? Schefter mentioned 2 teams inside the top 10 that he's heard would be willing to trade down: the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 5 and the Carolina Panthers at number 8. And I think when it comes to Jeanty, you're probably looking at the Jags at 5, because the Raiders at 6 are a threat to take Jeanty. And if you already get to Carolina at 8 and Jeanty hasn't been taken, well, Carolina's not taking him, so I think you would probably just take your chances if you're the Bears and see if he lasts till 10. But if you get a little nervous early on in that draft, Jacksonville at 5 seems to be the team you'd go up and potentially trade with, as the Jags could be willing to move down 4 or 5 spots, get a little extra capital, and take a player at number 10. Let's talk about the Jags, because Schefter calls them the wild card team within the first 5 or 6 picks at number 5. Because right now, the consensus in the top 4 picks is as follows: Cam Ward to the Titans, Travis Hunter to the Browns. We'll see about the Giants, but probably Abdul Carter, and then Will Campbell to the Patriots if those top 3 picks fall like that. Seems to be pretty set in stone. Most people thought Mason Graham at 5 was kind of the consensus. If you look at most mock drafts the last month, that's been the case. But Adam Schefter is now saying that is not necessarily the case. Here's what Schefter had to say. Many mock drafts have pegged the Jags to select Michigan defensive tackle Mason Graham at number 5 overall. As the venerable Lee Corso says, however, not so fast, my friends. Jaguars coach Liam Cohen has long had a soft spot for wide receivers in the draft, and the top-rated wideout in this class, Arizona's Teteroa McMillan, has drawn comparison to the Bucs' Mike Evans. Of course, Liam Cohen came from Tampa and coached Mike Evans. They had a lot of production together. McMillan has wide opinions on him in this draft. I've always been on the higher end of the spectrum with him. I don't think it would be crazy for them to take him here, although recently it's felt like he could fall outside the top 10. Today, though, there's been movement in the betting markets. Mason Graham and Ashton Jeanty are now co-favorites to be the Jags pick at number 5 at plus 175. T-Mac up to plus 300. He has skyrocketed in terms of a potential option for Jacksonville with that spot. And I do wonder, again, going back to like a team like the Bears, like you consider trading up, if the Jags really like the idea of McMillan, doesn't it make sense that they would try to trade down? Like, okay, we're comfortable with Jeanty or Graham. We really like T-Mac, but we feel like based on the intel we've gotten, we could get T-Mac at 10 because Dallas at 12 seems to be the team that would take him first if he fell to them. Like if I'm the Jags, I would probably take that chance, and I would trade back. And if T-Mac's not there, well, you could take Tyler Warren or something like that and add a weapon for Trevor Lawrence with that number 10 pick. So it does seem like the Jags at 5 could be where the draft starts if the first 4 picks end up being chalk. And the latest intel would suggest that the top 4 is at least softly locked in at this point in time. Okay, let's talk a little Kirk Cousins now, as Schefter kind of brought him up as well. Like, what does his future look like? There was a lot of Browns buzz a few weeks ago, but then they signed Joe Flacco after trading for Kenny Pickett. Browns are expected to draft the QB at some point as well. So Cleveland probably not a fit there at this point in time. Here's what Schefter had to say, saying publicly the Falcons have said that they're not interested in trading Kirk Cousins, but that they're entertaining offers if the right deal was on the table. Privately, they have had discussions with teams and have asked for a lot in return per sources. Atlanta has asked for any acquiring team to pay $20 million of the $37.5 million worth of guarantees left on Cousins' contract. To date, no one has been willing to do that. There's a feeling around the league that a team, whether it is the Vikings or the Steelers, might be willing to pay down roughly $10 million. The Falcons and Cousins, who has a no-trade clause, recognize that their future is not together. The Minnesota mention is interesting because that kind of got rumored. That was like an internet rumor like a month ago. Like, well, could he go back to Minnesota and be a mentor to JJ? Him and Kevin O'Connell have a great relationship. He still has a house there. And look, if JJ's not ready for whatever reason, injury or just, his progress as a young player, maybe there would still be a scenario where he could start at least early on. And worst case, if not, he'd probably rather be a backup in Minnesota than a backup in Atlanta, right? He's been with Minnesota for a long time. Like I said, he has a house there and everything. So maybe he would look at that as an opportunity of like, well, my long-term prognosis of starting isn't there, but that long-term prognosis of starting anywhere may not exist in the league right now. The Steelers are the one team where maybe there's an opportunity to start there. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't commit to them or if the Steelers get tired of waiting or whatever the case may be. But if the Steelers aren't certain that Rodgers is going to sign, well, they're definitely going to draft a quarterback. So even if they add Cousins or we're interested in, it could be Penix 2.0, right? Like Cousins could sign off on that. Sure, he'll start week 1, but the second he struggles, they'd probably just turn to the guy they drafted. So I could see Kirk signing off if the money worked out between the teams, Atlanta and Minnesota, just be like, yeah, I'll go to Minnesota. I know I probably won't start, but maybe there's a chance I start, and at least it's a place I've been for a long portion of my career. So I could see that happening. Minnesota doesn't really have a backup QB on their roster right now, so keep an eye on that one as we get through the draft. I could see that happening shortly after. Okay, speaking of quarterbacks, let's talk some other QB draft dominoes outside of Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, Cam Ward's going to the Titans. That one doesn't need to be discussed any further at this point in time. But what about the other quarterbacks in this group? Well, a couple of nuggets that Schefter dropped in here is the first one's the most fascinating, as Tyler Shuck has become a polarizing figure in this draft. He'll be 26 in September, older prospect. He says that some teams have Shuck as their QB1. Yes, over Cam Ward on their big board. That seems hard to fathom. Now, if you want to say that his film this past year was the best or among the best, like I guess I could get behind that. He played really well at Louisville, but he's 25 with injuries. Like he would have had to have a Joe Burrow type of season to get that label from me over Cam Ward, but who I don't even love Cam Ward, but compared to Tyler Shuck, I just don't see how that could be the case, especially given the age and the injury history. So that is fascinating. I have no idea when he'll get drafted. Feels like his range is like super early second round to late third round now. Could he sneak into round 1? I'd be surprised, but I guess we'll see. We alluded to this earlier. The Saints, Adam Schefter used the phrase hot and heavy from an league executive told him that the Saints are hot and heavy on Jaxson Dart. He doesn't think they'll take him at 9, but maybe they'll take like a Tyler Warren there or a pass rusher and then trade back into round 1 for Jaxson Dart, kind of like the Shedeur idea I threw out there for the Giants earlier. So keep an eye on that. There's been some comps between Jaxson Dart and Jalen Hurts. Obviously, Kellen Moore's their head coach now, so maybe there's something to that. And then the Rams, I thought this was interesting. This was actually, I think, a nugget from Matt Miller of ESPN. they had a top 30 with Jalen Milroe. And I think the Rams are a wild card in this draft. They're going to take a quarterback at some point. I don't think it'll happen at 26, but maybe they trade out of that spot because they don't have a second-round pick. Maybe they trade back. Maybe they're the team that trades out for a team trading up for Dart or Sanders or something like that. They pick up a second, third-round pick and take a guy like Jalen Milroe early on day 2. I certainly could see that being the case. He got invited to the draft, so doesn't mean he's going first round, but he's got to be somewhat confident he's at least going second round. So take that for what it's worth. But I think the Milroe thing is the most fascinating in this draft because you can make a strong argument, and I'll make it right now. After Cam Ward, if you're telling me, hey, would I rather take Shedeur Sanders or Jaxson Dart in the first round or Jalen Milroe in the second round? I think I'd rather take Jalen Milroe, especially if I have a veteran QB like Matthew Stafford where, hey, you could sit for a year or two, learn the pro game, work on your footwork, work on just what it takes to be an NFL quarterback, and then we're going to unleash you in a couple of years. Doesn't mean it'll work, but his ceiling is higher than a lot of these other guys. Like, unlike Shedeur Sanders, he has premium physical gifts. Rocket launcher of an arm, sub 4.40, big and physical too. Like, he's built to take more hits in the NFL, so I think that's fascinating. I think Milroe on day 2, I'd rather take that dart shot than, Shedeur or Dart in the top 20 or something like that. Okay, what say you? Who is the best QB in this draft after Cam Ward? Maybe you like someone more than Cam Ward. Let me know in the comment section down below. And again, hit that subscribe button. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to For Verts as we're continuing to grow this thing every single day. Turn on those notifications as well. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. See you then.